You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 84. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Today, I'm so excited to share an interesting and entertaining interview that I had with my friend Valerie. Last week, I shared with you about my 5-year transformation, and I asked you some questions to consider your own transformations over a 5-year span. And this week, I wanted to dig in deep with a friend of mine and let you hear how her life has completely transformed, what she dealt with, what her struggles were, and what she has planned for the remainder of this 5-year cycle. Let's go to the interview. Hi, Valerie. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited to talk to you because you and I have really great conversations all the time. Anyhow, I love hearing your perspective and your take on things. And so when you were willing to basically share a recap of your last 5 years with me, just because I am personally interested in this topic now, I was so grateful. Would you mind just introducing yourself to everybody?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Valerie, and I have worked with Bex in the past. And as she said, we have a lot of fun and a lot of great conversations. Personally, I am an active realtor, and my company name is Happy Val RE, of course, for real estate, but it also says Valerie. So tried to be clever there.
Love that.
And I'm excited to, dive a little backwards and see what I remind myself about from the last 5 years while we're talking.
I really have to thank you because I think when I texted you and was like, hey, do you want to do this? I mean, I'm just curious, what was your reaction? I knew you would say, yes, because you're friendly and you're down for any adventure. But really, what were you thinking when you were like, why do we have to talk about the last 5 years? What came to your mind when you saw that text?
Honestly, for me, the funniest thing is I instantly was like, ew, I hate the sound of my voice on the microphone. Which is funny because, I hosted karaoke for ever, but talking is different. But as far as the topic, it just instantly got me thinking ooh, my memory might be a little bad. I better figure out, some information about these years. And it got me thinking, which was really cool because then I was able to, bring some stuff back to the surface and go, oh, wow, what a difference 5 years can make. So.
Isn't it crazy? I don't think we do that often enough, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so did anything pop up for you when you did start to think back? Have you started any new practices or new habits or hobbies or anything new for you in the last 5 years that maybe you didn't expect back in 2016?
I think for me, looking back from today, one of the biggest things for me is I just feel so much more like a grown-up now than I did 5 years ago, just where I'm at in my life and my career and my relationship, the friends that I have in my, my immediate circle. It's just a different vibe than it was 5 years ago before I had really solidified my goals. And so, that's just been a really big deal for me, just right down to who I talk to on a daily basis. It's just a level of maturity that is enhanced so much since, 20 whatever.
Yeah, whenever that was 5 years. Isn't it so crazy? For me, 5 years passed in an instant, right? This last 5 years has just zipped by so quickly. And so I was trying to think, what did happen 5 years ago? What did happen 4 years ago? What were we all thinking about and talking about 3 years ago? And so I did some research, looked for headlines from 2017 or looked for best movie or whatever of, the past years. And I was surprised how much of it I had forgotten that it's not even on my radar at all anymore.
That's completely gone. I know there's just stuff you're like, oh my gosh, that was 5 years ago. Or
yes.
So I totally get what you're saying.
So if that happened with our culture and politics and world events and current events, how much of that from our own lives has just been completely erased and forgotten,
Right.
Yeah. Let me take you back in 2017.
Right.
Do you remember, did anything major happen in your life, or do you remember starting anything new for the first time, or being new at something back in 2017?
2017 was actually a pretty awesome year for myself and my daughter. So the big deal for us was my daughter actually graduated high school in 2017,
Oh,
and she left home for the first time and went to Tucson to go to U of A. And that was the same time that I actually began cohabitating with my significant other. So lots of big changes that year for us.
wow. And okay, so here's a perfect example. You and I have known each other and been pretty close friends for a couple of years. And I just assumed, in such a dumb way, but I just assumed you guys have been together forever, living together forever.
We've been together for 6 years,
Okay.
officially like 2015, and then we moved in together in 2017.
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. And I also just assumed that your daughter has been an adult her entire life because I met her as an adult.
She's always been pretty much an old soul, my little mature thing.
Yeah. So basically you kind of became an empty nester in a way with your daughter moving out of town. And then you also became kind of like a home partnership, I guess. Yeah. I don't know, because you were already a couple, but then, so did that cause you to have to learn anything new or change anything about your lifestyle or your interests?
It did, only because his two kids, who are both older as well, but they were still living at home.
Okay.
So when I moved in here, I basically moved into a home with two young adults, or one teenager, one young adult, and him, whereas I was so used to it just being me and my daughter, and we had like our routines and our situations. So coming in and having to kind of get used to other people's living styles, it was challenging.
Yeah. Did you do anything specifically in that transition time to deal with those challenges? Like, did you get counseling or read books or listen to podcasts or start journaling or anything?
Well, honestly, in the last couple of years, I've become more of the journal podcast person, thanks to you. But back in 2017, I'll go ahead and admit I probably didn't know what in the heck a podcast even was. Let's be real. I worked in apartment management in 2017. So I was managing apartment communities, and that kept me very busy. And so I just I'm a go with the flow kind of person.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to step on any toes as like a new member of the household. So I just would go to him if, the kids were doing anything that made me want to pull my hair out or whatnot. Again, they were older, so they had their own lives going on. It was just a learning process for both of us, engaging him a little more and teaching myself to kind of calm down.
Right. Wow. Well, I think that's a really helpful skill, and it's probably served you very well since
it has
to learn that. Yeah. Wow. And I just love that you are willing to share that story. And it sounds like maybe a little bit of a struggle too, because people are changing their living situations all the time. I think in 2020, a lot of people probably changed their living situations or were stuck in living situations that they might not have wanted based on not having other options, And I think you sharing that story is helpful because now that struggle and challenge is in the past for you, and you made it through and you learned from it and it helped you calm down. So it's like, oh, I see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. The go with the flow thing is not something I would have used to describe myself 5 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting.
I feel like that's a big change for me.
Yeah. What do you attribute that change to? Did you learn it somewhere, or was it just out of necessity? Did you intentionally decide that you were going to start to go with the flow?
So as a single mom, I was very, I don't want to say wound tightly, but I guess as a single mom kind of just working in the day to day, you don't have the luxury of going with the flow as much as you would like. So once my daughter graduated and she was in college and, doing her thing, I had the ability to really kind of focus on me and my anxieties and my stuff. And so able to just kind of learn every minute of every day, like to tell myself, like, it's okay to breathe. So I still do that, like, because I'm still just a pretty anxious person. And so I'm constantly just like, it's cool, just chill out. So
yes.
Yeah.
What a good reminder I think for everyone at all times, whenever we start to feel that way, just to be like, hey, it's cool, chill out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell myself that
Good.
a lot.
Well, what about moving into 2018? Anything new happened for you there? Did you take on any new hobbies or interests or side
I
hustles?
did.
Okay.
2018 was exciting. Right at the end, I got my real estate license in December of 2018. So that was a huge career step for me because I had been trying to get a real estate license since 2014, but health issues with my daughter and some other stuff that had happened and relocations and whatnot really
Yeah.
hindered that. So I just committed to it in 2018, and I did like this 12-day crash course, and I got my license. And at that time it was more to have the ability to manage multiple apartment communities, but
Mm-hmm.
I then decided I needed to run away from the multifamily industry.
Okay.
And that's when I got my license and decided I was going to go on a different path into 2019, making some changes.
That is amazing. Congratulations in arrears for that, because that is
Thank
a big
you.
deal. Yeah. And so if we were to go back and interview the 2019 Val, and if we said, hey, what do you think you'll be doing in the next 3, 4, 5 years? What do you think your path is going to be? What would she have said?
Ooh, 2019 Val. She was probably really confused. I knew in like mid 2019 that I really wanted to move out of that multifamily property management environment more into a real estate geared career. So it really did become almost consuming in my mind to make that change. But it was, in my mind, one of those things I needed to maintain my salaried career while I found out how to do real estate. So I was lucky in September of 2019 to find a job at a real estate brokerage that allowed me to manage a portfolio of rental homes while selling real estate. So that was really where my real estate career began because I was able to start getting out there and doing it. So
Yeah.
I think in 2019, towards the end there, I just, my goals became all about real estate. I want to be independently employed. I want to never work for another human being again. And yeah, and then just get out there and change lives was kind of a big deal for me. So
Yes. And I want to just underscore, because you have given me so much advice and encouragement, because I manage my own rental properties, although I am certainly seeing the benefit now. I'm even wondering, do I continue? Maybe I should just hire Valerie or someone to do it for me. But yeah, I just want to say, even though it might sound like you're new to this, you are not new to this. How many years do you have in, managing rentals and dealing with landlords and tenants and and the whole real estate, fair housing, and all of those really specific laws?
18 years.
See, that's amazing.
Not to express my age, but 18
No.
years.
Yeah, because you started in kindergarten, so that's
I did.
Yes. So yeah, you just have a wealth of experience and insight and knowledge, and I just think
Stories to tell. Stories
to tell. Remember,
we could do a whole nother podcast.
I was trying to get you before I started my own podcast. Basically, I think I was trying to live vicariously through everyone else before I started mine. So I was trying to get everyone I knew to start a podcast, and I asked you to please do a rental horror stories or something like that.
Oh, I so should. I still should.
Yes. Okay. Well, if you want help with that, I would be happy to help you. I think your voice, first of all, does sound amazing on the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And you do have so many interesting stories and insights to share. And I bet people would be curious, right? Like they love to listen to crime shows.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, listeners, coming soon. No.
No. Okay, we'll see. We'll see if anyone reaches out and asks for the link to that podcast. So yeah, so then you were working for a real estate brokerage. You were starting your own, basically doing your own transactions on top of managing rentals, right? Yes. And I think around the time that I started to get to know you, because I also remember one of our very first conversations, you were at a gym that had Zumba classes that you were allowed to bring guests to, and I wanted to go with you. And I think we just never coordinated our schedules because we kind of worked opposite schedules at the time. But when was it that you really got into fitness and that kind of thing?
Let's see. I've always tried to have some sort of routine because exercise for me is just more mental than physical as far as my well-being goes. And I'm by no means a fitness guru, but I do love my workouts now. So I think I really committed to like regular workouts in September of 2019. And that was just through one of the studio, like boutique gyms. And I love it. So I've been pretty consistent with that for a couple of years. But yeah, that was the gym that I was at when I first met you. It was one of the larger box gyms and they have the classes. But yeah, we never went. So
yeah, that's okay. And but that is one thing that kind of stuck out to me because I think I do remember that when I first met you, it was like you said, you were like, I have a gym, I do this, I do that. But then there was a point where you started becoming basically an animal. I mean, in a good way, you're like, I'm doing this class, I'm going this many days, I'm doing this challenge. I love my trainer. I love my workouts. I feel so good. And I think it really was obvious from an outsider to see that change in you. Did you feel that change yourself?
I totally did. So we went on a trip. My husband and I, that's a story we'll get to in a minute.
Okay.
We took a vacation to Hawaii, and when I was there, my physical appearance and stuff really affected my ability to enjoy myself on that trip. And so that was in August of 2019. And I just, I kind of just vowed that whether or not it was a weight loss thing or not, I was going to get my butt in gear and get stronger, get healthier. And I did it and I loved it. And I still love my coach and I still love my gym. And I'm still at the same place as I was 2 years ago as far as, where I'm working out regularly. And it's been huge for my mental game as well.
I love to hear that. And how was it? And we are jumping around a little bit because I heard you just say the H word, husband. So of course we want to talk about that too. But how was it for you during lockdown and quarantine? Were you able to find alternate ways to keep that momentum for yourself, or did that have to take a dip like many things did? How did that go for you?
It did at first when quarantine began, the weather was still relatively nice. So we were able to get out, ride the bikes, go for walks, do some outdoor workouts. But once it, started to get warmer, it did become impossible other than like in-home workouts, which I am the worst at. Self-motivation when it comes to exercise, totally not my thing. I need someone like yelling and barking at me to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So, but the minute we could get back in, I went right back to it without hesitation. We worked out with the masks on and it was brutal, but it was so needed. So I got right back to it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I was also the kind of person who thought I like the structure of the gym and the accountability of the gym. I like going and knowing that a class starts on time. So if I don't get there on time, I have to show up late, that kind of thing. But then I learned, and the 5 years ago me would not have guessed this, but I learned for myself, I'm not saying you or anyone else needs to take this lesson for them, but I can actually do it at home, and I was just, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that. So
I know your commitment to your at-home workouts is so impressive because I have tried. I bought an elliptical. I rolled for services on YouTube, all these things, and it's just none of it is. It just does not work for me.
I wouldn't call mine a commitment necessarily either, but just like you just said, it's all about the mental benefits for me. Oh, by the way, yes, it's good for your body too, and oh, by the way, I guess it helps you stay in shape, but even if those two weren't available, even if those two weren't, part of the benefits, I mean, it's all about the mental benefits. And I get a lot of my best brainstorming while I'm doing Zumba and walking, So I don't know about you. Do you get any good brainstorms while you're working out?
I don't. I try and shut it all off for 1 hour. Like I intentionally try not to brainstorm when I'm working out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's like a shut off, just all body, all active, no thinking.
Yeah. Someone asked me, how do you get ideas when you're, working out? Like, she didn't mean it this way at all. I know she didn't mean it, but the message that I took from it was, you must not be working out hard enough.
Oh, how
it's kind of
funny.
true. Like, I mean, I was like, oh, maybe that, because she was like, because when I work out, I'm just so focused on like trying to just keep up with the instructor or trying to do whatever we're doing. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I do kind of take it easy. But again, that's okay because it's not really about the exercise. It's about, the benefits, the mental benefits.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And everybody takes something different out of it too.
Yeah. So, okay, tell us about how you now have a husband.
Okay. Back to like pandemic conversation in 20, whatever, I don't even remember. It feels like 80 years we've been dealing with this
Right.
pandemic, but early 2020. So my now husband travels for work all the time. And before the pandemic, he was traveling like 3 weeks out of the month. So when the pandemic hit and he was no longer traveling, I got very, very worried. Like, how are we going to function now that all the kids have moved out? It's just the two of us. And we've gone from him being gone 60% of the time to us being in each other's space 24/7. So I was, that caused concern for me in the early part of 2020. But the amazing part is we actually became closer, and it was so easy, and it just proved to us that our relationship was so strong. And so, just short side note, this man vowed never to get married. So it was like something I just thought would never happen. But in February of this year, he actually proposed to me, which was wildly unexpected and amazing. And we decided at our age and given the way of the world, we just wanted to get married. So we actually ended up planning and getting married on April 3rd. So we've been married for 4 months.
Wow, congratulations. That
Thank
is amazing. And I
you.
do remember when you and I first started, hanging out and talking about our lives and everything. I do remember you mentioning like, well, my partner never wants to get married, so I guess I'm never getting married. And it did feel kind of like sad and like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No.
And now here you are within a couple of years, happily married. And
Yeah.
that's
Clearly, he's
amazing.
made a very large transformation in the last few years as well.
Yeah, totally. Well, congratulations. That's super exciting.
Thank
Have
you.
you noticed any changes in your life as a married woman?
Other than the complications of changing my last name, our life kind of still feels like it did before.
Yeah.
When you live together with someone, especially going through a quarantine, married or not married, those day-to-days are pretty much the same. So I made a joke after we got married. It was like, oh, now I just do the dishes with a new name.
Okay.
But no, it's so happy. Our relationship is just very easy. We have a lot of fun, and it's very low maintenance, no drama. So very, very lucky lady. And he's a lucky guy.
Yes, that's what I was just about to say. It goes both ways for both of you. Yes, you're both amazing. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about not about like, interpersonal stuff and relationships, but
Yeah.
more about like technical skills if you want. We don't have to talk about it, obviously, but like, for example, I got my first Mac computer in 2017, I think. And before that, I was always using PC. So I, in the last 5 years now, have completely switched over to be a Mac user, and I love it. And when I look over people's shoulders at their PCs, I'm like, I don't understand anything.
I get that. I do.
Yeah. So have you started any new, learned any new technology or adopted any new, like technical skills or habits that the 5 year ago version of you would have been surprised or confused by?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, very similar with you in the Mac situation. I've always been a Windows PC user. And then when I started with the brokerage in 2019, they, in the department I was in, everybody had Macs. So they hand me this Mac computer. And I'm like, I don't even know how to close a window because the little X is on the wrong side of the screen when you're used to using a PC versus a Mac. So, but now, like, I have the Mac computer. It's all I use. I get on my husband's PC, and then I can't close Windows on there. I don't know what I'm doing. I do still have an Android phone, but I think I'm going to switch over to an iPhone. And I just got my very first iPad. I'm behind the times, but so I'm learning all about that stuff. There's so much to all of this that I don't know. I'm basically like a use the internet, type an email kind of technology. So
Yeah,
I'm
but
learning.
you are learning, right? Because you've recently started like creating your own social media graphics now too. You're working with
Yes.
someone on your own website. What other kinds
Yes.
of things are you doing like that?
Well, I'm just learning different softwares, like the marketing software. It is fun for me because I love creating, but at the same time, it's also very helpful to learn. Um, and then let's see, what else am I learning? I mean, I'm doing a podcast with you right now.
I
5 years
know.
ago, I'm like, what's a podcast? Are you serious? Like, what is this?
Oh, that's
So,
amazing. Yes.
yeah, little things like, I can cast a show from my phone and my TV now. I mean, and none of us could do that 5 years ago. That technology was barely available. So it's just crazy how much advancement happens year over year.
It is. And that's something that's so exciting to me. And it can be a little bit overwhelming if I let my brain go in that direction. But most of the time, I'm just very optimistic and hopeful.
Uh-huh.
Like, I wonder what we're going to have next. I wonder, what we're going to get. I remember,
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly which year this was, but it could have been right around 16, 17, 18. I got into this real like crush on technology because it was doing so many things for me and making my life so easy, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I can meet people online and I can have a calendar that syncs to this and I can cast things from my phone to that. And I just was like so in love and so grateful. Like whenever I wrote a gratitude list, there was always at least 2 apps on it and a new software, So yeah, has there been any technological advance in the last 5 years or so that has just made your life so much easier or so much more enjoyable?
That's a tough one. I was just thinking about how Zoom made everybody's life a little more doable during the pandemic because it was like the only way to see any of the faces that you were missing.
Right.
But I guess for me, I don't know that there's any one particular. That's a hard question for me. I love music, so anything that happens where I can listen to more music and it's more accessible. Audiobooks also, actually, that just popped into my head. Yeah. I have somehow managed to listen to like 25 audiobooks since the beginning of 2020.
That is great. So do you get them from the library yet, or can I teach you how to do that if you haven't started doing that yet?
You will have to show me how to do that. Right now, I mean, I've got my Kindle app and I just I don't know, that's what I do, I believe. I just borrow them and then return them when I'm done. So I'm not paying for that.
Yeah. So, okay. Then you probably are getting them from the library. Yeah. So for anyone who's listening, if you are not getting free audiobooks from the library, please let me help you do that, because then you too can listen to 25 books in a year if you want.
Yes. As a real estate agent, I drive everywhere, and the pandemic did not slow down real estate at all. So I did find that audiobooks during my long commutes from one end of the county to the other are amazing. Like it just helps me not realize I'm stuck in traffic for an hour and a half.
Yeah. What kind of things do you like to listen to?
I'm a murder mystery lover all the way. Like, and it doesn't even have to be done well. If I can't figure it out, I'm gonna love it. Like, who did it?
Fiction? You're listening to fiction?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big fiction. It's all I watch too, is just like Law and Order, and I'm all about that suspense, solve the mystery type stuff.
Okay, fun. I'll have to think of some recommendations or maybe ask you for some too. I don't like listening to those or watching those as much as I used to anymore. Like I used to be into crime and stuff, and now I've just become maybe too sheltered or too sensitive. And I'm just like, I don't want to see anything bad. So switching again. Now let's look forward. So 5 years from now, we will do a reunion episode. I don't know. In August of 2026, what will have happened or changed, or who will you be in August of 2026?
Well, I'm in 2026. Wow. Okay.
Isn't that crazy? I will be,
yeah, it's really crazy. I'm like, we're gonna have flying cars by then.
Right.
In 2026, I am hoping to be like top producer level, multi-million-dollar realtor who has a team underneath me. And I want to have my own property management portfolio, which I'm currently trying to grow and build. And that way I can just have other people work for me instead of the other way around. Of course, I'm still going to be married to my wonderful husband. And hopefully, even sooner than 2026, we can start really focusing more on travel, because I need all these bans to be lifted so I can go see the world. So that's my big dream.
Oh, that's so nice. What do you think, what new hobby or talent or skill do you think you'll be developing in the next 5 years?
Ooh, you asked a good questions. Gosh, well, I want to get my broker's license eventually so that I have that. And then there's also some property management designations that I would like to get that just kind of increase my value in the eyes of clients, I suppose.
Yeah.
And some of those take a few years. And then I think, I'm just always ready to learn more about my industry, about technology. And then, I also love being involved, and I'd love to volunteer more and do more with the community.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds lovely. That sounds like a perfect life.
And own a few more dogs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Why not? All the dogs.
All the dogs.
Oh, that's so cool. So is there anything that I should have or could have asked about now 10 years that we've been talking about, 5 in the past and 5 moving forward, that I didn't ask that you would love to share or talk about?
I think the only thing that, I'm very proud of personally is that in the last 3 years, in 2019, starting as a realtor to now, I have truly felt so much growth in my career, and that I've gained so much knowledge, and this year's just shaping up to be phenomenal. And, I'm just very excited about my industry and my career. And so the next 5 years, I just see, exponential potential.
I see that for you too. Yes, I totally, because I see how much you do for your clients. I see how much they love you. I see how really well informed you are, and that you're really, really able to give your clients good advice, like advice that you would give your daughter, because you care about them and you want them to be well taken care of. I think that's just an obvious path for you.
I love that. And I love that you say that about caring for people on that level, because I do truly. And that's why I've always wanted to be in a career role that was making things happen for other people.
Well, it shows, and people feel it from you. They feel it, because I don't think people feel that from every service provider. I think we not that we need to, not that we have that expectation that everyone needs to take care of us as if we were their family member. But when we encounter someone who does do their life and their business that way, it shows it, it's very obvious and evident. And so then we feel very lucky when we've met someone like that, right? Who's like, wow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you attribute that growth to? Because I agree. When I heard you say, one of the things that you're proudest of is that development and growth in your business and in your knowledge and skills in the real estate industry. What do you attribute that to?
This may sound strange, but in 2018, my husband and I, we were kind of going back and forth on what I wanted. He was my sounding board, so to speak. So I was so afraid back in 2018, I guess in 2017, I just did not have the confidence that I needed. And he was a huge part of that. Like, he's super, super supportive and believes in me. And he gave me that push, and he's like, you got this. And I feel like when I dove into real estate school that final time, I don't know, lack of a better term, I was just hell-bent on doing it and proving to myself that I could. And so doing it, passing the tests on the first try, and just conquering those mountains that seemed so scary just started snowballing. Yeah. And so I've just gained a lot of confidence over the last few years. And I do have faith in my skills and abilities that I didn't have before.
I love that. And it is very evident too. And I hope this is now, and I don't have to hope, I mean, it is now permanent, this confidence is now part of you, and it's going to continue. And it's so interesting. Right before you and I, when we started this interview, right before I pressed record, we were talking about how it seems like there's something going on. Is it the planets? We don't know, and I don't think I told you this part. As I was thinking about this series of episodes that I'm doing, last week I did my own 5-year recap kind of thing. And then this week it's you. And hopefully next week we'll have someone else join us for this kind of a conversation. As I was researching and preparing and thinking about it, I found a post where someone had basically, there's something in the air, right? Because someone was basically like, I've seen so much change in myself over the last 5 years. I've seen so much transformation. And then all of these people were commenting on the post, agreeing and sharing their own. And so I shared a couple of those statements last week's episode, but just from what you just said right now, a couple more of those that I didn't fit in last week were like, I'm more confident and self-aware. I was able to leave a job instead of letting it stress me out. I learned not to engage with people who are unwilling or unable to treat you with dignity. And then someone else said, I learned to no longer put up with other people's drama. And I just feel like, wow,
I love all of those.
Right? Those are like four different people from four different places, probably in the United States, maybe not, maybe somewhere else in the English-speaking world.
Yeah.
And it just feels like we're all having this awakening or transformation or coming to realization. What would you call it?
Well, I think a lot of it, and I've said this to like family and friends as well, but I think us being forced into this quarantine lifestyle in 2020 did again force a lot of us to take some time to self-reflect. And because what else are you going to do? You can't go out to eat, you can't go watch a movie, you're just kind of home. So you're just noticing things. Like I did a ton of work on my house because I was stuck in it, right? But I think 2020 did a lot of that for a lot of people, at least a lot of people I've talked to. They noticed things in their lives that they just weren't happy with, and they had the time to make the changes, and so they did, which I think is so cool. I love everything you just said about all of those statements.
I know. It gave me, as I read them, it gave me this sense of, it's not just me. This isn't just a one person thing. And then hearing you say the same thing too, it just feels like, this like a force. And that's why we don't have to hope that it continues. It just feels like it is real. Yeah. So last couple minutes here of our recorded conversation. We will definitely continue our many, many conversations many other times. But just for everyone else who is listening in, anything else you want to add or say, or do you want to tell people how they can find you? What else do you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much. I've never done this. This has been really cool. And you're so easy to talk to. I love listening to your podcast. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. As far as my personal information, my website will be up soon. It did take a little pause because, of course, we had to change my name on everything.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, but it's just going to be buywithvalre.com. So very easy. There's going to be information on there about, the processes for buying, selling, and of course, owning investments. There's no commitment. If you want to reach out to me and chat about real estate, I'll never stalk you. I just love talking about what I love doing. I'm always excited to meet new people. So I've had a great time doing this, and who knows, maybe we'll do another one, like you said, 5 years from now.
Yes. Or another topic. Who knows? So once we have the show notes up for this episode, we can put the link to your website on the show notes. So if anyone's not sure or wasn't able to write that down because they're driving or something, we could have it be at bexb.org/Valerie. So it's easy to spell and to sound out and remember your name. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear if we have any feedback or any more questions. I'll pass those along to you. But thank you so much, Valerie, for talking and letting us dig through your past with you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Valerie, for coming on the podcast today and sharing your experiences and your stories with me and with everyone who is listening. So again, if you would like to contact Valerie or learn more about her or hire her as your realtor or your property manager, you can find her contact information in the show notes for this episode at bexb.org/Valerie, Valerie. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk with you again next week. Bye-bye. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.